Okay. Welcome everyone to this wonderful meeting of Tigertales Toastmasters. I would like to start the meeting and invite our Toastmaster of the day, Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Toastmasters RIT Tigertales. I have the honor of being your Toastmaster today, and we're going to talk about the theme of reflection. Just like we have a reflection of ourselves in the mirror, something that I've asked a lot of our participants tonight is what is something that is most significantly that they've been thinking about or reflecting on during the social distancing time. And for me, it's been kind of like taking my heart and putting it in front of a mirror and seeing what all the things inside kind of look like while this time of taking a break from things and stepping back in my life has done. And I know for lots of people, lots of things have happened, and being able to hear from their experiences in this time and see how they've grown or seen and heard about different things that they've learned and they probably wouldn't have learned otherwise has been a pretty powerful example. And I've heard many things that have happened in this time that people have been able to do too. Losing weight. Some people started to cook more at home instead of go out to restaurants. And most of them cook healthier than what they would order in restaurants. These are at least from reports from patients at Matt's work. Maybe not everyone. Other responses go on the other side, where sometimes people have gained more weight because we sit around a little more or we're not as active because of our jobs. But regardless, whatever it is that we've been able to reflect on and grow in this time, it can definitely influence others. So I wanted to be able to ask this question to many of you tonight so that we can learn from one another and encourage one another as we move forwards into a little more normalcy. Next, I'd like to introduce our functionaries for tonight. And those include a timer, an ah counter, and a grammarian. So I'm going to first introduce our timer for tonight, Hassan.
Hello, everybody. Time is money, as we usually say, and my job is to help you manage this precious resource. And for speakers, like 5 to 7 minutes speeches, at 5 minutes I will show the green. I don't have any card, but I will show you my phone, the app, the green. At 6 minutes it will be the yellow, and then at 7 minutes the red one, and then you will have 30 seconds to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan. Next, we have our ah counter for tonight, which is, oh, I had Deb, but I think it's going to be Ajita.
Hello everyone. I'll be the ah counter for tonight, and I will be looking for filler words like so during your speech.
Yes, I've already noticed myself using some of those filler words. We will look forward to a report at the end. Next, we have our grammarian tonight, who's going to be Deb.
Good evening, everyone. So my job as your grammarian is to keep an ear out for good uses of grammar, along with some areas of improvement with grammar, but also something that I want to highlight is our word of the day, which is servility, which means an excessive willingness to serve and please others. An example of this is a classic example of media servility. So I'm gonna extra bonus points if you use the word of the day in your speech. The whole goal is to try to get creative and find ways of fitting things in that don't always feel most natural or comfortable. So we'll be keeping an ear out for that, and more to come with table topics on how this word fits.
Thank you, Deb. Now we're going to move on to the next portion of our meeting, which is going to be our main speakers for tonight. We have 3 speakers and 3 evaluators. I'm going to introduce each of the speakers and their evaluators tonight to tell us what we'll be anticipating from each of our speakers for tonight, which will be actually all men. Our first speaker for tonight will be Mac, and his evaluator will be Xavier. So I'm going to have Xavier, if you could tell us what we'll be anticipating with Matt's speech tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Tonight, Mac will be working on a project called Inspire Your Audience. And the title of his speech is going to be Waking Up. What he asked me for specifically, in addition to being inspirational, is he wants to come off more spontaneous and in a non-scripted way. Matt has found himself falling into these patterns, and that is what he's going to be looking for. Back to you.
Thank you, Xavier. I asked Matt the question about what's the most significant aspect he's been reflecting on during the social distancing time. And he said daily habit. He's been trying to be more active in thinking about what his habits were that he set in the beginning of the year and maintaining them throughout this time. And I can attest that I've seen many of them coming to fruition, and looking forward to what the rest of the year will bring. Matt's title of his speech is Waking Up, Matt.
Sorry. Okay. Have you ever learned something and then asked yourself, how did I not know that for so long? How did I stay asleep and not wake up to that reality for so long? For me, that feeling has been very applicable as I have come along a journey of waking up to my own white privilege and the existence of racial inequalities in the United States around me. 3 weeks ago, we had some riots in Rochester, which brought the truth and reality of racial inequalities to the forefront. And we couldn't deny it. And ever since then, I have been really thinking about my own life and my own journey in waking up to my own whiteness and racial inequality. So I want to share with you some phases in my own life of how I woke up to my own white privilege. To start, I would call the first phase totally asleep. I was raised in Western New York, in the Finger Lakes. It was a beautiful, idyllic part of the state. I have 2 brothers, and my parents homeschooled us. We were raised in a very rural area, and you could say we were quite sheltered. We were kind of kept separate from anything different, anything that looked or sounded different than we were. And this was my upbringing, completely asleep to the existence of racial inequality, racial tension in the United States around me, or unaware of the fact that I was born into a white family that had inherent privilege. This asleep state lasted all the way through middle school, high school, college, all the way till medical school. So I'm going to zoom you forward to age 22, where I would say phase 2 in my life was beginning to wake up, my eyes starting to open. I went to SUNY Buffalo Medical School, and there I was surrounded by people from all over the world, India, Africa. Many of my classmates were African Americans, and it was eye-opening and a really great experience for me. When I was in medical school, I took part in a inner city free clinic, and we brought healthcare to those in the city, and many were from very lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and I began to really experience disparities in wealth. Many were African Americans. And I have to say, a pitfall for me at this point was falling into a rescue mentality. I easily slipped into I'll be a part of really helping and rescuing in a sense. Rescuing is very different from actually connecting. And so that's an important distinction and something I learned about myself. So I was beginning to wake up to diversity and to disparities in wealth. The third phase was full awakening. And I'd say over the last 7 to 8 years, I've become fully awakened to racial inequality and my own white privilege. I'm still learning, but I would say I'm fully awake. And that has come through the influence of very important people in my life and books. I know a girl named Sarah who lives in the city, and she lives in an area of the city that is largely African American, and she is white. And I've seen her open her heart and open her home to her neighbors and make connections. She really has a deep concern about building this bridge, and she has impacted me greatly. Corey, who many of you know, has impacted me greatly because of his boldness, his courage. Corey speaks out against injustice of every form whenever he sees it. He is not afraid of those who would rather stay asleep and not recognize. Corey has impacted me greatly. There are some key books. One book that I'm reading now is called Waking Up White. It is where I got the title of this speech. If you're at all interested in learning more, this is an excellent book by Deborah Irving. When she tells the story of her own upbringing in Winchester, Massachusetts, an affluent white area, and how over the years she became aware of her own white privilege and also of systemic racism, which she exposes excellently. It's a very readable, approachable book. I highly recommend it. In this third phase of waking up, I've been impacted greatly by Toastmasters. In Toastmasters, I have heard stories from so many different people. I've heard stories of struggle from Afghans who were in refugee camps in Pakistan and Iran. I've heard stories from Toastmasters who were from parts of Africa and were out, some of them also refugees. Any story that I've heard has helped create a soil in my heart of empathy and openness, and has been crucial to me fully awakening to this important issue in my life and in the country around me of racial inequality and my own white privilege. The next phase in my life of this I would call personal responsibility. What is my personal responsibility with this knowledge, with this information, and in this issue? And the best I can come up with right now is it has to do with leaning into the discomfort, leaning into the tensions even. 3 weeks ago when these riots happened, Alex asked some of us if we wanted to go and help clean up. So I went along. While we were there, we had an excellent conversation with a Black gentleman who had questions about, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? What's this all about? And it was a really genuine dialogue. So having dialogue with people of color is so important and has been so important for me. And I know as part of the next step of one-on-one conversations, really hearing stories from people who live this and have struggled. So personal responsibility. also looks like, I believe, voting, that's happened this week. I don't know if anyone, well, voting for wherever you're at, and standing up to any signs of systemic racism. And I don't want to get into all of those, but there's so many. Learning to speak out is taking personal responsibility. In conclusion, I know that each of you has something that you are on the journey of waking up towards. And it's different for each of us. There is something in our world that we need to wake up to, or in our own lives. And it takes courage. And I know that each of you has the courage to continue to wake up to that aspect of the world around you and to make change happen in the world. Madam Toastmaster, who has eaten?
Matt, for that uplifting, inspiring, humbling speech. If each of you could go into the Zoom group chat, if our timer could give us 1 minute, you can privately chat Matt Mack and give him some feedback for his speech. Hassan, you can let me know when 1 minute is completed, please. Unmute. Thank you, Hassan, and thank you for those that could give some feedback. And our next speaker for tonight is going to be Preetham Podar, and his evaluator is going to be Tanai. Tanai, if you could tell us what we'll be anticipating from Preetham's speech tonight.
Hello everyone. So this is Preetham's, I think, first speech from his level 3 pathway innovative planning, and the objective of this speech is to inspire the audience. So best of luck, Preetham, for your speech.
Preetham jumped in tonight to fill in for another speaker. We really appreciate his willingness and flexibility to jump in whenever there's a need. It's a great example to us all. And Preetham's answer for what he thinks is the most significant aspect he's reflected on during the social distancing time was that he's reflected on people that have been distanced due to time. There are some people he can never go back to, even if he meets them now, as time has grown them apart. His speech title tonight is Timeless Business Lessons from My Father. Preetham, Timeless Business Lessons from My Father.
Thank you, Kelly, for that wonderful introduction. Today, I want to talk to you about some timeless lessons. As you heard in my introduction from Kelly, I have been thinking about how time grows us. We are at a time when, like Kelly mentioned, people have been losing weight. I have been doing the opposite. I have gained about 4 to 5 pounds because of my wife. She's always cooking wonderful food and baking delicious cakes, and I can't keep my tummy away from it. But there is also a lot of chaos going on. People have been losing jobs, businesses people have been thinking of starting businesses. So I want to see a show of hands. How many of you on this meeting have ever wanted to be in their own business? Anyone? Okay, I see about 4, 5 people. Okay, 5 people. All right. So even if people who never thought about being in their own business, I learned some timeless lessons from my father, which I think will help you clarify why you would start a business, what would you sell when you do a business, and who would you even do business with. First thing, I'll start with telling you a story of how I learned these lessons from my father. So about 20 years ago, my father was working as an ordinary clerk for the West Bengal Police Department. West Bengal is a state in the eastern part of India, and we were living in the city of Calcutta. He was earning decent salary when one day one of his best friends from high school, Joydev, came to him. Joydev came to my father and told him, Paritosh, that was my father's name. Paritosh, I just lost my job as a store manager. I don't know how I'm going to feed my family, and I don't know how I am going to send my daughter to school. Now, my father was just a clerk. He said that, Joydev, I can't give you a job because I'm just a clerk. However, maybe we could start a business together. Let me ask my wife and get back to you. So he came back home and asked my mother, what do you think about starting a business? My mother welcomed the idea by saying, are you crazy? We have already lost so much money before while trying to start our business. Now you want to do it all over again? Well, my father said, well, don't worry. I have made so many mistakes before that I know exactly what doesn't work. Moreover, before I did not have a reason to do a business. Now I have a reason. What is that reason? My mother asked. My father said, this time I want to help a man move ahead in life. Earlier I was just doing business to make some money. Now I really want to move someone ahead in life. My mother gave her approval after that answer, and soon my mother and father bought a property at a shopping complex. The property was about 7 feet long, 3 feet wide, and about 10 feet tall. That was the location for our new business. The business was named after my mother. It was named Anuma Enterprises. So that's why our business started. Our own family business, my father started it. It was the reason to help someone move ahead in life. So if you ever want to start a business, think about who you can help go ahead in life. The next thing about a business is you have to sell something to do business. So what do you sell? One day I overheard a conversation with my father and his business partner Joydev that what are we going to sell? My father said, well, we are going to sell things that we are going to use. Let us fill this 5 feet by 3 feet by 10 feet shop with the things that we are going to buy. Joydev, my father's friend, was surprised. What do you mean? We are going to be buying from our business? How are we going to sell things? My father said, if we don't use the products that we are going to sell, why will our customers use them? The next day, my father and Joydev went to a place called Bara Bazaar. It's called the Peak Marketplace if translated into English. And they got goods that were wallets, belts, ladies' bags, school bags, raincoats. And after that happened, I never had to buy a school bag from outside. I am still wearing the belt that I got from my father's business 10 years back. And we always use products from our own business. We never went outside to buy these products. So it was a very simple solution. We bought the things and we promoted those things to others that people would need. So that is what you are going to sell. Now, who do you do business with? Well, one day my father actually took me to the place from where he got these products, like the place I call Bara Bazaar, the big market. The Bara Bazaar place, it was a place where you could find anything from a paperclip to an elephant. I thought if I roamed the market enough, I could even buy a father. It was a place like this, always crowded, people shouting, screaming, everybody was in a hurry. I went with my father and we went inside a small shop. Inside this small shop, there was a man sitting on a white platform with some cushions and mattress, wearing a white shirt, and he was chewing betel leaves, or what we call pan. His lips were red with the juice from the betel leaf. My father went inside and gave him some bags and said, "Well, Mr. Lal, these bags did not sell, so I am here to give you back." Mr. Lal said, "Oh, Mr. Poda, you are here. So glad to see you. Have I ever asked you money for things that did not sell?" And he took the bag back. The next thing that he did was something that totally earned my trust on this man. He gave us 2 bottles of Coca-Cola. It was hot outside and he even did not ask whether we wanted to drink something. He was ready to offer us a drink so that we could quench our thirst. We sat down and after a few minutes, a bag full of goods came to my father. My father said, "When do I pay you?" to Mr. Lal. Mr. Lal said, "You only pay me after your goods are sold. If nothing sells, bring them back and you don't need to pay them for me." Me and my father went out. My father did not even open the bag and see what was inside, nor did Mr. Lal ask for any money. So that was the kind of relation, the kind of people my father worked with, people who trusted him that he will give them money when the goods are sold, and people my father trusted him to give him high quality products that he never even opened the bag and checked what was inside. So I hope that helped you understand why would you do a business. You would do a business because you can help someone move ahead in life. What are the products you would sell? Well, you sell the products that you yourself would use. And the third thing, who would you do business with? You only do business with people you can trust. I hope that helped you get clarity if ever you want to start a business or if you already have a business. And I'll hand it back to Toastmaster Kelly.
Thank you, Preetham. I still would not like to own a business, but thank you for that inspirational speech. If we could have 1 minute timer, and if those of you who would like to give Preetham some feedback, you can message him privately on the Zoom group chat. Thank you, Hassan. Our final speaker for tonight, well, scheduled speaker, is going to be Alex Turner, and his evaluator will be Chitra. So Chitra, you could tell us what we'll be anticipating from Alex's speech tonight.
Hello, everybody. Alex is working on his level 3 on his visionary communication pathway, and he's looking forward to work on a vocal variety project. The thing I want to look forward in his speech is how he's challenging himself not to fill the void with the filler words. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Chitra. Alex is a well-seasoned speaker and Toastmaster, and I asked him the same, what's been the most significant aspect he's reflected on during the social distancing time. He responded with saying that he's been super busy during this time, So his word of the year has been more important than ever, which is soar, which he extended that to saying, learning to fly on the winds that are bigger than me instead of flapping and trying to get by on my own strength. A wonderful analogy of persisting in this time. And we're looking forward to his speech titled tonight, Steal This Speech. Alex, steal this speech.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest for tonight. I stole this speech, just about all of it, and I stole it from one of the wisest men that I have ever heard speak. I stole this speech from prolific writer, speaker, and salesman by the name of Jim Rohn, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind, and he would happily admit that he stole this speech. Because wisdom is a lot of things, but it's never new. And while his wisdom is well worn, his presentation feels fresh. He's got this energy and a rhythm to the way that he speaks that makes you want to listen. In fact, he's got such a rhythm to his presentation that an R&B artist by the name of Roy Smooth set a bunch of his lessons to R&B or hip hop beats. And it's one of my favorite things to listen to on Spotify. So if you do nothing else from this speech, go and give it a listen. It is super weird to hear a motivational speaker put to R&B beats, but it is a wonderful way to do a brainwash if you need one. So in those songs on Spotify, he breaks down success into a few simple universal laws, and I would like to share just two of them with you tonight. The first law is the law of atrophy and growth. And it's as simple as this. If you don't use it, you lose it. Whatever you don't use, you lose. Whether it's muscles, or a skill, or knowledge. How many of you took some kind of language in high school? In primary school? How many of you did not use that language after you got out of school? How many of you still remember that language? No. I took French in high school. I don't remember any of it. Je ne souviens pas. That's all I remember. Not a thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. Now, the same is true of growth. If you use it, you get more, whether it's muscles or skills or knowledge or ways of thinking. I want to tell you a story about something that happened a few days ago. It all started in the morning when I couldn't find my keys. Now, for those of you who are a little bit disorganized, it's a frustrating way to start your day. Now, eventually I did find my keys. I got in my car. I was a little bit late. And wouldn't you know it, not only could I not find my keys, but now I'm stuck in traffic. And all right, I'm a little bit late. I've been stuck in traffic. I couldn't find my keys. And I come to work and my voicemail light is blinking at me. Now, I hate voicemail. So now not only did I lose my keys, I got stuck in traffic, and now I got a bunch of voicemails that I got to deal with. And now the printer isn't working. And you see where this is going. Every time I go back to that list, can't find my keys, got stuck in traffic, a whole bunch of voicemails, the printer's not working. I'm going to keep finding more things to add to that list. Now, what if I started my day with gratitude? And I started adding on to that list. It's going to keep getting longer through the day. Whatever you use, you get more of. It's the law of atrophy and the law of growth. The next law is very similar. It is the law of sowing and reaping. And that law is whatever you put out into the world, you get back. And that law is both negative, as in if you put bad stuff out into the world, you get bad stuff back. Or if you put good stuff into the world, you get good stuff back. So I just want to hear a couple ideas of folks in this Toastmasters room, what do we sow when we're in a Toastmasters meeting? Go ahead and unmute and throw some out there.
Support.
Support, absolutely.
Being open to feedback.
Open to feedback, love it.
Experiences.
Experiences, hearing stories, absolutely.
Appreciation.
Appreciation. Those are all great. Oh, go ahead, Xavier.
I said trust.
Trust, exactly. You put it out to the world, you get it back. And here's the great thing about the law of sowing and reaping that's even better. You get much more. So if you give out trust into a Toastmasters audience, you get trust back. So if I trust you with a hard story from my life, you all trust me much more because I was vulnerable. If I support you in the speech that you're giving, and everyone in this room sees it, you're all going to support me more the next time I give a speech. Now, those are all great things. Now, here's something I want you to think about. What happens if you sign up to do something, but then you get afraid and you don't do it? What did you just sow into the world? Fear. And what happens the next time you want to give a speech? You get much more. So now you're even more afraid. That's how the law of sowing and reaping works. So be very careful not to sow things that you do not want back, and much more of them back. I signed up for this speech and I was writing it 20 minutes ago. Now, this speech is the fruit of many, many times sowing more and more the confidence that, you know what, I'm going to be able to give that speech, whether I know it or not. And I don't want to encourage you to write your speeches 20 minutes before meetings, but I do want to encourage you to stick to it, because the more of that you sow, the more of it you will get back, and much more. So here's what we know. Life has laws. Laws like the law of atrophy and growth. Laws like the law of sowing and reaping. And you can use those laws to get things that you want, and to get things that you want for other people. And if you don't, you will get things from those laws that you do not want. So make sure that you get on the right side of the laws that govern life. I'm Toastmaster.
Sorry, Matt's using the blender. 1 minute, please, Hassan, for feedback for Alex Turner. I think that was a minute. I think I saw the cutoff, yes. Our next portion of our meeting is going to be our table topics. For those of you who would like to grace us with your servility of using your voice to speak in spontaneous ways, Sarah is going to be our table topics master, and she's going to lead this portion of our meeting. I asked her the same question about what she's been reflecting on. And she said during the social distancing time, she's been focusing on reflecting on stories. She's read a lot of books, learning the true and imagined lives of those unlike herself. Through conversations with others, she's heard their stories of hardship and adventure during this time. She's reflected on her own story, where she's been, how far she's come, and where she's headed. Sarah, if you could take over and lead this next portion of our meeting.
Hello, friends. As Kelly mentioned, this is an impromptu speech portion of the meeting. Everyone here is familiar with Toastmasters and how Table Topics works. However, we're still going to get a little refresher since I'm not the general evaluator today, but I will say we're having a little trouble with timing today. So let's get a report from our timer as to what the requirements are for Table Topics.
The time for table topic is 1 to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute, I will show you the green card, the green color. 1 and 30 seconds, the yellow, and at 2 minutes, the red one, and you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up.
Thank you, Hassan. I'd also like to hear from our grammarian, Deb, on the word of the day. What does it mean? Can you give us an example sentence? Because, as I'm sure Deb would love to tell you, but I'm going to steal her thunder, you must use it to qualify for the virtual chocolate. Otherwise, you will have virtually sad tongues.
Ditto what Sarah said. So the definition of servility is an excessive willingness to serve or please others. An example I have is a classic example of media servility. So consider using it in a way that, you know, you're trying to explain something around servanthood or a personality trait someone may have. Something to think about as you're answering and responding to questions. I'll do the best I can to stay on video. I realized it's made me lag a little bit today for whatever reason, so thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Deb. It's wonderful to see your face, even if it is lagging. For our table topics questions tonight, I will take your volunteering, and then I will ask you one of the questions that I've come up with for the day. So, who would like to participate in table topics today? I recognize pretty much everyone here has a role, so we're going to throw out the don't do it if you don't have if you have a role kind of thing. Everyone can participate today. All right, Xavier, I was about to go alphabetically down the list. Sabrina, you get the next one. Xavier, what is one thing that you would love to learn how to make? What would you love to learn how to make, Xavier? Ah, shoot, my connection's unstable.
It's pretty laggy, so the question I'm going to go with is, what was one thing I'd love to learn how to make? And I hope that's the question. If not, it's where I'm going. Well, I'm really glad that Sarah actually asked this question because she showed her civility very recently towards me during this coronavirus times. I got to see her a couple weeks back at this point at a socially distanced level, 6 feet apart. But in that, there was a handoff And that handoff was this cute little character of Groot. And she knows that I love Groot. I 3D printed one that was probably about twice that size. And what I would love to learn at some point down in the future is actually how to make lovely little Groots this way, because I think I could show some how would I say it? I could reap that knowledge and sow it back into the world and share Groots with everyone. Hopefully not virtually forever and not socially distanced forever. Madam Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Xavier. Is my connection better now? Am I hearable? Hoping. All right, that was the correct question also, Xavier, so thanks for that. Sabrina, you still up to doing the next one? Okay, your question. We've already had one speech that referenced a book. And my next question also is about books. What one book do you think that everyone should read and why?
Whoa.
You're muted, Sabrina. You're muted.
Always forget. I absolutely love to read, so this is a super hard question for me. But I love books that they are in a series. I enjoy when the character repeats, and as you read the books, you get to learn more about the main character, their history, where they've been, where they're going, the lessons that they've learned, and you kind of join in the story with them. You become their best friends. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking about, 4 or 5 different series I absolutely love. But one character that really sticks out to me, I love thrillers, I love mysteries, and I don't know if anyone has ever had the chance to read The Alphabet Murders, which is by Sue Grafton. And they start out with A is for alibi, B is for burglar, C is for cat burglar, something. I know I've got C wrong. But Kinsey Milhone is the protagonist who serves the characters throughout the books. She is a model of servility in all the books that we learn about. And she's not a perfect character. She's very flawed. She's been divorced. She is a detective, but she has had many, many different jobs. And I think that she's a person that all of us can relate to, because we've all had our blessings and curses. We've all had our challenges and our strengths. So I think that she's a character that we all can relate to. And she's a wonderful person and very funny to just follow along in A through Y. The author died before she got to Z.
Thank you, Sabrina, for that insight. Mysteries are not necessarily my thing, but you almost convinced me. If only she had finished Z. All right, let's do one more before we hand it off. Who else would like to do a table topic? Oh, good, Ruchi. Ajita, you're off the hook. I was going to pick you. Ruchi, I'm excited for you to answer this question. So, it's actually kind of came from Alex. Imagine you had a time machine and you could go back just to watch, no interfering, one aspect of your own life. But this time, you're not just rewatching it by yourself, you get to bring someone with you. So what would you want to show someone from your life, and who would you be bringing along for that ride?
Thank you, Sarah, for the question. Time machines. We all do want to go back to time to see the things that the way we should have done them and we did not do them. And we know that we cannot change. But for me, I would definitely want to go back to a time when I was doing my fellowship in Rajasthan, back in India. And I would definitely want to bring my mother along with me, because with my fellowship, what my mother understood was we did something in the villages with some schools and some people, and we were busy all day. That was what she understood of my 2 years. And I would want her to come and be with me while we would visit schools, and that would not be an act of servility, but it would be, it was a challenge to be there. And as much as she acknowledged the social worker in me, there is a side of her that she wanted me to accomplish more in terms of what she thought is an accomplishment, which is getting a stable job and being in a city and all those things and settling down. So I would want her to be with me and see the joy of being in the villages and being with the people and developing those lifelong connections and learning some things that I would never have been able to learn in the city. Back to Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Chitra. I hope you get a time machine so that you can bring your mama back to see all the wonderful work that you did there. Mr. Timer, was everyone within time for table topics?
Yes, they're in time.
Madam Grammarian, did everyone use the word of the day?
Yes, they did.
Fantastic. You have your choice of 3 wonderful contestants. You can send your votes to me through the chat for either Xavier, Sabrina, or Ruchi. And then
You can set up a poll if you guys want.
Oh yeah, Chitra can do a poll thing. Never mind. Don't send me anything. With that, I will turn it back over to Kelly, our totally terrific Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Next, we have the general evaluation section of our meeting, which is super important to being able to share some feedback with our main speakers tonight. And tonight, our general evaluator will be Sabrina Nudo. Sabrina, if you could take over and let us know how this portion of the meeting's going to be led.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. So my job is to evaluate everything that takes place throughout the meeting. And I have taken notes on everything that I have observed this evening. And I will also take time to just give you general feedback on everything that I've been a part of since this meeting has begun. One of the things I would like to share is that I come from Speech Crafters. That's the club that I normally attend. And it's just so fun to see the difference in how our meetings are conducted. When I first was thinking about joining Toastmasters, I hopped to meetings to see what was a real good fit. And I noticed that there was this very long, very meticulous agenda. And I thought that that's how it is everywhere. I love your agenda. It's very simple. It doesn't seem like it takes days to prepare. It covers everything, and yet it is very simple and gets the job done. I also really enjoyed how you don't have a business meeting. About a half an hour of our meetings are devoted to business meetings that are very long and tedious and require voting, and it just takes away from the enjoyment of the evening. So just getting right to the purpose of why you're meeting and getting right to the speeches, I absolutely love that. I think it's fantastic that you are recording your meetings. We don't do that, and I wonder why we don't, because we can go back and refer to what, listening to ourselves to see how we can do better, or maybe there was a speech that was especially meaningful and we can go back to it, or just recording proof that the meeting took place. I thought it was especially supportive how everyone reviewed the agenda and looked for gaps and are all the roles filled. And when you found that not everyone is present, people rose to the occasion and said, I will do it. Or if there was nobody said no, but one person felt like, oh, I've not done that before. It was like, okay, well, this is a perfect time to try it. It's a perfect time to learn. Wonderful support, wonderful feedback, wonderful opportunity. Another thing that I especially enjoy about your meeting is I think it's fantastic that your evaluators are sharing what they're focused on while they're listening to the speeches. And these are just a few of my takeaways, but I can't wait to share with my team, my club, what I've learned from all of you tonight, and having a very energetic, positive, supportive, let's get right to it meeting. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sabrina. This also is an opportunity for the evaluators to give their feedback for each of the speakers. I'm going to introduce each one. The first speech was Matt, and Xavier, if you could give us some feedback about his speech. Hassan is going to give us the time too. Hassan, if you could remind us what that time is for the evaluators. And then Xavier, you can go right ahead.
Thank you, Kelly. So the evaluators will have 2 to 3 minutes for their evaluation. At 2 minutes, I will show them the green color. At 2:30, the yellow, and at the 30 minute, the red one, and they will have 30 seconds to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Matt. I don't know how far away oh, there he is. So I won't have to yell too loud to give him his feedback here. Matt, you asked me to focus on speaking non-scriptly, and I want to highlight 2 very great ways that you did that tonight, and a few minor tweaks that you can make to be even more. Because the way that I see it is, if you had a road, which was giving the perfect non-scripted, non-loose speech, there's 2 ditches, right? There's being over-prepared, trying to memorize every line, and then the other ditch is preparing last second, coming in, not really putting the value in as well. But I think the first way that you really took that step is starting 2 days before giving this speech, when I encouraged you to speak tonight, even though you had the natural tendency to want to prep it out weeks beforehand. You said, you know what, I'm going to take it a little bit differently. I have this idea, it's set in my heart, and I'm going to go for it. And I think that was the first step, because when you're over here, it's going to take a lot to move back to the middle of the road. And I think it's a tip that anybody that's on this side can bring forward to kind of just go for it. The ways that you could improve this, though, because your speech in some ways felt more scripted, especially in the beginning, but as you got towards the end, I could tell you're getting more relaxed and it got more casual. But the way especially that you could bring in more, I guess, non-scriptness to it is to really get specific in the stories, because when you're telling a story, you're not speaking from this kind of head knowledge of, this is my first phase, this is my second, this is my third. you're speaking from, here's my story. I want to tell it to you in a way that's engaging. So I'm watching my audience and seeing if they're responding to it. If not, I'm elaborating here or trying to throw in something here. That if you could bring us to these moments, and you had these three ways to bring us to those moments, but instead of calling attention to that, how could you bring us into your privileged childhood that would make us understand in 30 seconds young Matt and his sheltered life? Or how could you bring in one of your influences? I think of Azim especially, that really changed who you were and how you've moved with that as you've been continuing on. Additionally, the one thing that I especially liked and where you felt most natural is when you were talking about the book that you just read. Obviously, it had a clear impact on you. And the book was, nope, I don't have it down here. So you're going to have to remind us of the book again in the chat. But I can tell your passion through it, that is the reason that you were brought onto this speech. And I can tell you that I was inspired to go read that book. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Xavier, for that very valuable feedback. We know that you've received a lot of feedback and therefore you can give good feedback, kind of like Alex was talking about sowing and reaping. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to our general evaluator, Sabrina, and she's going to introduce our final two evaluators for tonight.
Thank you. So Tanae, am I saying the name correctly? Tanae, you evaluated Pritnam, and what feedback do you have to share to help his speech be better?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and Preetham. So I'll be honest, this speech was kind of very personal to me. The reason why is my father is also a businessman, and I had the same, like growing up, I also saw him, how he conducted his business, and I used to just observe him and see what he was doing and just learn from him. And also the other fact is I was evaluating your speech, so I was interested in listening to your speech. Every speaker that I have heard in Toastmaster has a unique ability in giving a speech. But what ability that I really like about your speeches in general is your way of telling a story or painting the entire picture as if we are there or I was there, which is the reason why I remember most of your previous speeches, like when you fell down when you were running in a school race, or when your car broke down and you had to call Matt. So this is something that I think is a skill that is something that I appreciate a lot out of in your speeches. And this is what I saw in your speech when you were telling about how your father's friend Joydev came to your father and asked and told his story about how he is in problem and needs to start a business. And then you just took the story from there to your father taking advice from his wife, and then starting the business. So your story had proper chunks where I felt like there was a continuity, and I was there throughout the entire speech. And this was something that I felt like your speech for me was very relatable in that sense, because I felt like your description of the man sitting on the couch on that cushion with eating Beetlejuice and describing that how his lips were red while eating that pan. Like I was imagining some man who was sitting on that cushion. I was there with you. Like you were not the only one who was having Coca-Cola in the heat. I was there with you also having the Coca-Cola. That's what I felt while listening to your speech. Something that I felt that could be improved upon is the starting and the summary of the speech. The starting of the speech was something that I was not able to keep track of, in the sense that how it went to the speech. Like you started with the pandemic and then the businesses, and then you suddenly went into starting new businesses. So I was kind of figuring out where it was going. And in the end, what I would like to see is like you summarized all the points that you like learned and wanted to share. So what I would have wanted to see is how personal they were for you, so that the message would have, like for me, the message would have like, it would have like stick very, very well with me. And the last thing is your humor is different. It's surprise humor where you're expecting something and something else happens. Like as I have that sentence that you said, that the first thing that caught my eyes was where your mom welcomed your father's idea with "Are you crazy?" I was like, okay, that was unexpected. I thought she would say something nice. And then the other one was, you can buy paperclip to an elephant. Yeah, that that, and also you could buy a father. This exaggerating and surprising humor is something that I've not, like, it just comes out of nowhere and it catches you. And like, oh, that makes, it doesn't make sense, but yeah, it is quite funny. So overall, that this is what I have. This is what my feedback is. Excellent storytelling skills. Humor is very, very good, and just the ending and just a little bit improvement on the ending and that that I'd like to see. Over to you, Management Evaluator.
Thank you, Tanae. I'd like to introduce our last evaluator for the evening. Chithra, you had the pleasure of listening to Alex. And do you have any feedback to share with Alex this evening?
Thank you, Sabrina. When Xavier had sent out the invite for this week, I found that I have to be evaluating Alex's speech. And that word was like, oh my God, how do you evaluate a good speaker where you look up to? And I was thinking about it, and then I thought, it's like art. What is your perspective on it? How do you think about is what everybody wants to hear? They're looking for different perspective and fill the whole gap between what people want to hear and what the people are trying to convey. Is it merging it? Is it bridging that? So I want to thank Xavier for that. And Alex, it was a great speech. Where do I start? I really appreciated how honest you were at the beginning when you're saying this is something I stole. And then you wrote the speech in the last 20 minutes where you were saying that shows that not everybody is perfect what they seem to say. They're saying that everybody has their imperfections, and then you try to shape out of it and how you live a perfect life from those imperfections. I really like that you showed what you learned from the things you have done, like the way you stole the speech and how you said wisdom is never new. And like you wrote the speech in last 20 minutes saying that whatever happens, I stick with my plan. Other lessons that you want to impart us is something that everybody should start learning from, even from everybody can relate to. I really like that. I really liked how you brought in audience's attention again by asking questions and polling them to bring back every time when you're saying something that strong and you have to convey it to their hearts. And one thing you wanted me to look forward was the filler words. And I found that you hadn't used none. Maybe I didn't catch any. But that was something because you were comfortable with whom you're speaking and you're speaking from your heart and saying that you wanted to show what you have, what you want to hear, you want to tell, and they know what they want to hear. That always bridges the barrier and leaving out the filler words. There was one place where you said je ne sais pas in French, and it's like I don't know in French, but there were many people shocked. I was like, oh, I have heard this somewhere, but I do not know. I think it stands about I don't know, but not many people could have caught that. And if you had explained that it means I don't know, would have made everybody understand that, oh yeah, that's the first thing you learn somewhere in a language. And I really appreciate how your hand gestures were in sync with the rhythm of your speech. That was something I was looking forward. How does that come with the speech? And I want to learn something from that is what I got from you. Thank you, Alex, for a wonderful speech. Back to the general evaluator.
Thank you, Chitra. Can we please have a report from the counter?
So I just used a filler word right there. Maybe the meeting went really well and I didn't catch a lot of our counters, or since it was the last minute, I jumped in. I was not prepared to catch many our counters. So from the Toastmaster, Kelly, I got a couple of filler words like then Xavier, I got few filler words in the table topics and some in the evaluation section. Apart from that, Tanay, I got some filler words like a lot of times. That was something which stood out. Other than that, everyone had one or two filler words, not more than that. Over to you, Miss Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. Can we also hear from the grammarian? Do you have a grammarian report?
I do. So overall, found a few notable quotes from everyone's speeches. Matt, you're on a journey to wake up towards something. Very inspirational, like that. Preetam, he did something that earned our trust, gave us a Coca-Cola. And Alex, wisdom is a lot of things, but never new. I also liked, I stole the speech about all of it. So, excellent job, everyone.
And a timers report. Did all the evaluators this evening keep in time?
Thank you, Sabrina. All the evaluators except Tanai, because he delivered his evaluation in 3 minutes and 29 seconds. Xavier was within 3 minutes and 25, and Shikra 2 minutes and 57. For the speakers, many of them were in the time, Mark 7 and 39, Pritam 8:11, Alex 7:57. And for table topics, Xavier 1 minute and 5 seconds, Sabrina 1 and 55, and Ruchi 2 minutes. Thank you.
May I ask a question? In your club, do you vote for the best evaluator? You do not, okay. Then I will turn it over to Madam Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for jumping into that role. I know it can be very difficult when you're at a different meeting and there are some varying ways that people share things. So thank you for being so vulnerable and jumping right in. That's a really great example to us all. Our final part of this meeting is going to be to find out who won table topics. So we had 3 very wonderful candidates, but only one can take the prize tonight. So if you want to unmute and give us a drum roll, I will announce the table topic tonight. It is Ruchi. Yay! Congratulations. Here's your virtual chocolate. And the final portion of our meeting is going to be some announcements and guest feedback from Hassan, our president.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you to all the speakers. Just a couple of announcements. This Saturday we'll have a club officer training. So I think at least 4 members of the e-board will attend this training, which is good. And last week we also received the email from the Office of Graduate Students at RIT, and they would like the club to make a video, 3 to 5 minute video to present the club and tell them a bit about us. And we are working on that video. We'll let you know more about in the coming weeks. We also have a networking event which will be online. It will be on August 18th. Thank you very much. This is the end of the meeting. Thank you all. Thank you, Sabrina, for being with us. I really like your feedback about the meeting. I'm so glad that you learned from us. And see you. I hope you will be at the next meeting next week.
Thank you for having me. I would love to come again. Not sure if it'll be next week, but I would love to join you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you all, and see you next week.